You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, might as well start with the story of the day, at least I think for a lot of people, what went on in the National Assembly between Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois and François Legault as far as criticism of the new Santé Québec. I guess this is the health bill here. Take a listen. And for those who have not yet heard this, be prepared. Here you go.
Le Premier ministre vient de se féliciter d'accomplir, moi aussi je vais dire un mot anglais, le wet dream de Gaétan Barrette. Il vient de nous dire, moi je vais aller jusqu'où Gaétan Barrette est jamais allé. Pas sûr que les Québécois vont aimer ça.
Le Premier ministre.
D'abord, le co-chef de Québec solidaire là, devrait se rappeler qu'il n'est plus un chef étudiant, là, mais qui est à l'Assemblée nationale, ici, dans les mots qu'il choisit, là, qui vieillissent un petit peu, qui prennent un petit peu de maturité. Ça va donner quoi, Madame la Présidente? Des meilleurs services aux Québécois et une meilleure qualité de vie à l'ensemble des infirmières. Mais Québec solidaire préfère défendre le statu quo.
All right, so Jim, in a nutshell, François Legault letting Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois have it, reminding him he's no longer a student agitator, leader, or whatever, and you better wise up. We're in the National Assembly.
Wow. Okay. I mean, first of all, okay. I my hat's off to you because this was. I mentioned this yesterday because I said I wasn't sure I could say this on the radio. This happened yesterday.
Yeah.
This was the initial debate when the bill was tabled. And I said, I'm not sure I can say this on the radio. And what I love is before he uses this expression referring to Gaétan Barrette, he excuses himself for speaking English, which I thought was
That's
really
beautiful, yeah.
well. But listen, what do you want? You're going to get ready for more of it. And if François Legault wants to tut-tut and be the school teacher, listen, it wasn't that long ago that François Legault was suggesting that Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois and company were a bunch of agitators, sort of like these anarchists who are trying to overthrow the nation, the common good of the nation. They are going to have to deal, perhaps with less colorful language, but GND is at the head of the line, guys, and not just the unions, the medical associations. The more people find out about this law, the more people who are affected by this law will find out about this law. You're going to be hearing more and more criticisms. And given this government's character, they're simply going to dig in deeper, double down, say it's going to be this, that, or the other thing. What seems to be emerging in all of this as well is that this is going to be, how can I put it? The whole Santé Québec thing, theoretically, it's at arm's length, it's day-to-day operations. But if this agency has, how can I put it, an agreeable, a biddable, an agreeable kind of, board of directors that sees eye to eye completely with François Legault and company, well, the old fait is accompli, as they say. It's not going to matter whether the service improves, and there's nothing in that law that indicates service will improve. It's just a big bureaucratic card shuffle. And once again, we're seeing, the double speak that we've come to expect from governments in the 21st century. Everything is getting centralized like crazy, but it's not a centralization. Of course it is. So they'll keep saying, up when everything else is saying down. Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois will wax poetic in the National Assembly. François Legault will wag his finger. But the fundamental question is just how much closer has Quebec healthcare been moved towards the edge of a cliff?
Mm-hmm. Look, at the end of the day, we had Eric Maldoff on earlier in the show, and obviously there are a lot of conditions or a lot of, different elements to this document, Jim. At the end of the day, though, is it too simple to say, and I've heard other people suggest this as well, it's all generals, not enough soldiers, right? It's just more managers, yep. And typically that kind of stuff ends up kind of blowing itself up.
You had Chris Skeet on a couple of days ago,
yeah.
and I'm not criticizing what he said, but I loved how there's this kind of the rather matter-of-fact way he said, well, we're still short 7,000 nurses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's, sky's blue, water's wet, and we're short 7,000
yeah.
nurses. I would be moving heaven and earth at this point to make up for that shortfall. But instead of getting 7,000 nurses, maybe we're going to get maybe 1,100 more bureaucrats. That's what Bill 15 is full stop, end of story. So you can, we can have this conversation. The only good news is that it will take, by their estimate, 2 years to put into effect the 1,200 articles of Bill 15. A lot can happen in 2 years, and quite frankly, given the track record of Quebec governments for executing changes to the healthcare system that don't involve putting people out of work or shutting things down, it may take even longer. And on that journey, there may be some discoveries, and someone will turn around and say, well, maybe we should amend this because you know what, it's really not going to work. But you know how exhausting it is every time we go through these so-called reforms, and every time the reform is over, things are worse than they were. And you really have to wonder, does anybody, when it comes to healthcare in Quebec, does anybody who is in charge know what they're doing?
You could say it about Transport Quebec as well, I guess, but we'll leave it at that. That's fine. Okay.
Well, the difference is, if I'm stuck for a couple of hours in traffic, yeah, I'll get angry. If I'm stuck for a couple of hours in an ER,
exactly, sure.
Dead.
Yeah. Okay.
I really want your take on this. Your headline here is Roxham Road is a long way from Akwesasne. We know that members of 2 family perished, evidently while trying to cross into the U.S. What do you have to say about this, Jim?
Well, listen, I don't know if you guys watched the press conference at the Akwesasne police station today, but it was kind of weird because you could almost hear the tires screeching when the deputy chief of police turned around and said, no, these people weren't coming into Canada. They were going into the States. This is a story that has a lot of questions in it. We know that one of the young children who perished had a Canadian passport. And the cops made it quite clear, don't go off on the other end here. They were going into the States. They weren't coming into Canada, because you knew every reporter in that police station had been told by their boss, listen, you make sure you find out, you try and get a link between Roxham Road shutdown and this. And this is the exact opposite of what was going on with Roxham Road. But the sad thing is, that's the bigger story. The sad thing is that our 6,000, kilometer border is, it's not only undefended, it's largely unsurveyed. There are people out there who are making money transporting people into the U.S. and into Canada by sidestepping the immigration process. Sometimes they get through, sometimes they don't, and the results are fatal. But as far as I'm concerned, the overarching story here is, and we can say, yes, the Americans have a role to play here, but once again, as I was saying before, the matter-of-fact tone of some people saying we're missing 7,000 nurses, we tend to, generally go, oh, the immigration system is a mess, okay, and now it's time to move on. The immigration system is a mess, and here is an example of the fallout of that mess. We don't know why these people wanted to get into the States. We don't know why it was necessary for them to try and sidestep regular channels. And we don't know the whole story here, but we do know that 12 other people of Indian origin a year ago were lucky. They're both foundered, but they were picked up by the Mohawk police. So this is not a new situation. It's been going on literally for years. And the big question is, I thank you for the hearts and prayers, all you politicians. When are you going to sit down and really talk about an immigration policy that doesn't involve the possibility of people getting killed?
Jim, I'm going to leave it at that, but I will ask you, because it's going to be my question coming up in a sec. We talked Donald Trump very generally. He was indicted yesterday. Just real quick, what's your take on this?
I'm not sure if this is a first step, because it makes him look ridiculous. If it was, honest to God, if it was overthrowing the government, I think it would just be a big kind of nerdish conversation. But when the idea, this is the kind of thing that people will talk about over supper, about paying off a porn star to keep quiet about the affair. This is a nice bread and butter, nuts and bolts issue people can wrap their heads around. And the louder Donald Trump screams, and he's been screaming pretty loud right now, I think the smaller the turnout of support is going to be.
Happening on Tuesday. We'll find out. James, thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
You too, guys.